you're watching TechCrunch TV. I'm Colleen Taylor, sitting backstage at Disrupt San Francisco 2013 with two of the gentlemen at SV Angel, Brian Pokorny and David Lee. Thanks for joining us backstage here. You were just on stage with Michael Arrington along with Ron Conway, the founder of SV Angel. There was a lot that you all discussed, but one thing I wanted to go in a little bit more was, Brian, you said some interesting things about what makes a good product. Can you elaborate a little bit more there on your opinion?
Sure, yeah. We've been looking at more and more social applications as the ecosystem has developed over the years, and you tend to notice patterns and things, and there's a few characteristics. There needs to be a constraint within the application. It could be either a text, like with Twitter, there's 140 characters, Instagram, the square photo, front back has 2 photos taken in real time. There needs to be some sort of behavioral shift happening. So for example, Snapchat rides on the backs of the selfie, people taking more and more pictures, and front back rides on that as well.
Right.
There needs to be a shift in networks a lot of times. People forget YouTube was the convergence of broadband internet, physical cameras taking great videos, a quick upload of 10 minutes, so there was a constraint on the video where Google Video, people forget, made you download an installer to upload unlimited amount of video. It has to be simple to use. You can use it in line for a grocery store, not only the consumption of it, but just the creation as well. And there's a handful of characteristics you look at that ride this change of behavior. Hardware change, for example, is important too. In addition to just the network, Vine works because of the LTE network, now allows video to play back and upload a lot quicker. So all these things have to happen in the background, in addition to just making a great product.
And now pattern recognition, that term,
yes,
is one that venture capitalists use a lot, but it's also gotten a little bit of pushback because people say that it stops investors from investing in people that are unique. What do you think about that, David? What do you think of as pattern recognition?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I think, we always say that, the next Microsoft, no one could have predicted that the next Microsoft would be a search engine, and the next Google would be a social network, or the next Facebook would be we don't know what. And so it's always unpredictable, but I do think if you look at the data, there are some traits, as Brian mentioned. What are some of the really good social products? You look at some of the founders, it's usually a founder who's technically brilliant and who's really driven. I mean, that sounds like a cliche, but we understand the limits of pattern recognition. And that's why one thing that I emphasized when we were talking with Mike was that these are like 8 to 10 data points. And if they can help us make better decisions, that's great, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's pattern recognition. So
it's definitely more art than science. One thing I didn't mention, but when you use something and it feels fun, it's pattern recognition that it feels fun, but you know it when you see it. And these characteristics I mentioned, you have to look at the foundation of these characteristics so that you just don't say, well, it's a feature of this or that. I don't know, it happens all at once when you talk to the founder and you hear their vision and their inspiration. But I agree, there's no such thing, it's not pure pattern recognition, but you look for a baseline similar characteristics. When people always say, when half of the people you talk to dismiss something as a toy or call it novel or say, Facebook's just gonna do that, it's a positive in my mind.
Yeah,
at least at the stage we're investing.
Yeah, exactly. And what I think for us, it's like you want to avoid making the obviously bad decision, right? And the more you can understand of what's obviously bad, the better your decision making will be. And I think that helps pattern recognition as opposed to like picking the right thing, and it depends on the industry. I mean, as Brian mentioned, for some products, it just feels right, and you can just, for me, I'm 44, and I can imagine using it with Brian and people younger, and then using it with my wife and my peers. And that to me is a company, whether it be Vine, Snapchat, Instagram, there are some products that I think can break through different user groups.
And when you're evaluating whether something's fun or not, is that something that you just personally evaluate, or do you have trusted people that you show things to and try and see what their impressions of something is before you decide to invest?
I have a handful of people that I share the application with. Some are other entrepreneurs, some are people that create videos on YouTube, some are people that are other investors that I trust their instinct. So it's a handful of people that kind of are early signals of people that have predicted successful companies in the past that kind of validate my gut feel or instinct.
Yeah, and and it's important when I see these products, I rarely show them to sort of mainstream users, because the whole point is that you need to get penetration and usage and active usage with the early adopters, and then that moves into the mainstream. And if you get mainstream data points or you rely on them too early, you want to think about, okay, how will this extend? But I think in the early days, getting those early data points from the early adopters, I think, is critical.
I mean, two big complaints from a mainstream user are, this is boring because my friends aren't here and I don't get any feedback on it because they have no graph.
Yeah.
So therefore, you can kind of discount that when they say that, and you just have to go back to other types of early adopters to understand if they see something deeper in the product, the field, the content that's created with it.
Great. And last time I met with you, this is the last question, back in May, I guess, it was at the last Disrupt, I asked you, who's a great founder that you've met recently and are very excited about, or maybe invested in recently? Can you give me any names?
I know last time I mentioned Arjun from MessageMe, and he's doing great. I think someone I've been spending time with lately is Frederick of Frontback. He's going to be on stage with Mike. It's a simple app. It's 3 clicks and you can basically tell a story. You take the back of the picture at the front and then you push publish and you've told a story all in under a minute.
Right.
And he pivoted out of his previous product where he saw this behavior happening, and at the last minute kind of launched this after building it for 4 weeks just to validate the idea, and it's taken off.
Right.
Has over, I think, 200,000 downloads now, so he's doing great.
For me, he's already established, but he started a company called Council, which you guys have written about. His name is Balaji Srinivasan. He's also a professor at Stanford, and he's just an original guy. He's an original thinker. He's somebody who is one of the pioneers and real leaders in this whole area of health informatics. And so he's somebody who I think about, and I've known him for a while. He's an advisor to our fund, but I've just gotten the chance to spend more time with him in the last year or so, and so he's just somebody who pops up.
Great, good stuff. Well, Brian and David, thank you for coming backstage, and enjoy the rest of Disrupt.
Thank you.